On November 1st, 1765, the Stamp Act officially went into effect across Britain's American colonies. It seemed simple enough: a small tax on paper goods, including newspapers, playing cards, marriage licenses, even dice. But this seemingly routine law would ignite one of the greatest revolutions in history. But why were the colonists so upset about the Stamp Act? And how did it lead to revolution? Well, the French and Indian War began a decade earlier between Britain and France. It was part of a larger world war known as the 7 Years' War. Britain and its colonies won, gaining vast territories between the Appalachians and the Mississippi, and in Canada. But it was expensive. Since colonists benefited directly from the victory, Prime Minister George Grenville believed they should help pay down the massive debts incurred by the British government during the war. Parliament had already passed the Sugar Act the previous year, but the Stamp Act was different. It wasn't hidden in trade duties like the Sugar Act. It was a direct tax, and that made all the difference. Colonists were furious. It wasn't that the tax was high, it wasn't. And colonists realized that it was reasonable to pay their share to cover the costs of the war. The issue was that they had no representatives in Parliament, and thus were being forced to pay a tax voted on 3,000 miles away. No taxation without representation became their rallying cry. In Virginia, a fiery young lawyer named Patrick Henry introduced the Virginia Resolves, declaring that only the colony's own assembly could tax its citizens. His words spread like wildfire. In October 1765, delegates from 9 colonies met in New York for the Stamp Act Congress, a moment of rare unity in a region used to thinking locally, not collectively. Protests quickly turned violent. In Boston, Samuel Adams and the Sons of Liberty organized boycotts, burned effigies, and forced tax collectors to resign. By the time the first stamped papers arrived, mobs were waiting, and no one dared to distribute them. The following March, Ben Franklin pleaded the colonists' case before Parliament. The Stamp Act was repealed, but on that same day, Britain passed the Declaratory Act, insisting it still had full power over the colonies in all cases whatsoever. The Stamp Act lasted barely a year, but its spark lit the path to independence. What began as a protest over paper became the first step toward revolution. Here are other events that happened today in history. In 1512, Rome's Sistine Chapel, famous for its paintings by Michelangelo, is opened to the public. In 1800, John Adams becomes the first U.S. president to live in the newly constructed White House. In 1861, Lincoln names George McClellan as commanding general of the U.S. Army. In 1950, Puerto Rican militants attempt to assassinate U.S. President Harry Truman. In 1952, the U.S. tests the world's first hydrogen bomb on Eniwetok Atoll in the Pacific. In 1959, Jacques Plante becomes the first NHL goalie to wear a protective face mask. In 2012, Google's Gmail surpasses Hotmail to become the world's most popular email service. And now it's time for our Today in History quiz. The world's first computer worm was unleashed on the internet from a computer at which educational institution? MIT, Stanford, UCLA, or Princeton? Liked learning about the Stamp Act? Then you'll love this one about the Boston Massacre. Tap the screen to keep the story going on Today in History.